come on, ho, you from America, you from Oak Cliff, America. What up?
You understand me? You don't count. That's why it hurted me, because with Mo3 and other rappers saying they wasn't from where they from, but Mo3 went to these schools in North Dallas. You understand me?
Yeah, I had to do the Mo3 challenge too, man. It's from my city, man. My nigga Mo3 on the block.
Oak Cliff around here. Yellow bees, man. We in here, man. Y'all see what this my city, man. Y'all already know what it is, man. Oak Cliff America said that meant that stand on that, man, for real.
So you waiting on a fight with who?
The Pink Man, Pink Panther, whatever y'all want to call him, man.
Dallas County detectives are investigating the death of a mother and her little boy. Seagoville police found Lyric Bacchus and her 7-year-old son Deuce in the garage last week.
A young mother and her little boy, both gone, found in the garage of their own home on the morning of her birthday. Now listen to the neighbor who lived 2 doors down and caught the whole thing on his cameras.
It was just mayhem. Everybody out here crying, screaming. The cops was out here, they taped it off.
Within hours, the comment sections had made up their minds that this was no accident at all, that somebody did this on purpose. And one name kept getting typed over and over again, the name of a Dallas rapper people swore was secretly tied to that little boy. The story that spread said she had something on him, that she was going to expose him, and that she and her son paid for it with their lives. Here is the strange part, and it is the reason we are telling all 3 of these stories together tonight. The record does not back up a single piece of that murder story, and yet the rapper the internet pointed at really is fighting for his life in a courtroom right now, just not for this. So we are going to walk it in order, starting with Lyric and Deuce and what the police actually found, then moving to the Dallas rapper the rumor named and the real killing that has him facing the death penalty, and finally to a Houston rapper whose baby mama walked out of a house in nothing but her underwear with a story that would flip the whole city upside down.
Acting like he got it, baby, make that nigga pay you. He ain't got no money, girl, don't let that man play you. Niggas out here eating, we ain't faking just cause they do. Let that nigga know that you got money, he can't say you.
Lyric Bacchus was the kind of young woman who built her whole world out of her phone and her hustle, and she did it in a way that made people root for her. She was a social media influencer with a boutique and tens of thousands of followers out of the Dallas area, running a women's shop called Lyric's Closet, where she sold sets, dresses, and the kind of pieces her customers would post wearing themselves. Friends who knew her described her as a beacon of positivity with a vibrant spirit and infectious joy. And one of her closest people talked about her as a mother, a friend, and a boss all at once, because that is the space she filled for the people around her.
Bitches always in my motherfucking business. Worry about the fuck I got going on, ho.
She turned her personality into a business, and she turned her business into a little community, and at the center of it all was her son. If you scrolled through her pages in the weeks before she died, you would have seen a young woman fully locked into her grind, promoting new drops and pushing her customers to treat themselves. Her boutique carried everything from tight sets to bodycon pieces to little red dresses she marketed for Valentine's Day, and she even ran her sales under a discount code named after her own zodiac sign, since she was an Aquarius born on that February date. Days before the tragedy, her pages were still active with holiday promotions and customer photos, which is part of what makes this story so heavy, because there was no warning in any of it. She was a woman planning for the next season of her business, not a woman bracing for the end of her life, and everything she posted pointed forward. That son was Deuce, and he was 7 years old and a first grader at Seagoville North Elementary at the time, a normal kid who played outside with the other children on the block. The people who lived nearby knew him because he was always out there, in and out of yards the way little kids are when a neighborhood feels safe. Nobody who watched that boy ride his bike and knock on doors had any idea how fast all of it was about to end. And that is what makes the next part hit the way it does. The date matters here because Friday, February 9th was Lyric's birthday, the day she should have been celebrating another year. Instead, relatives could not reach her or Deuce. And when a relative can't get a mother and a child on the phone for long enough, worry turns to action. That worry is what brought the police out. Seagoville officers were called for a welfare check when relatives couldn't get in touch with them, and officers found the mother and son both unresponsive inside their home, inside the garage. And just like that, a birthday became the worst day the family had ever known. The chaos of that morning didn't stay private because a neighbor named Dion Loggins had home surveillance cameras rolling, and he had just come back from a run when everything broke loose. His footage caught the raw sound of it before anyone understood what they were looking at. Listen to how he described those first seconds.
First, you hear the screams. Then moments later, you see the first responders.
Loggins knew the little boy personally because his own child went to school with Deuce. And when the reality set in that the friend his kid played with was gone, it broke something in him too. He talked about the impossible job every parent on that street suddenly had, which was finding the words to explain death to a child too small to hold it. Watch him try to put that feeling into words.
It's just hard for me to have a 3-year-old son and have to tell him how he lost his first friend.
The grief spread outward from there the way it always does in a tight community, moving from the family to the neighbors to the school itself. The following Monday, Seagoville North Elementary sent a letter home to parents saying they extended their love and sympathy to the family and that counselors would be on campus to help students and staff cope. People left flowers out front of the home, and across social media, the tributes came pouring in for a young woman who had spent her online life telling strangers to love themselves and support each other. Loggins described the aftermath in the plainest terms possible, saying it was the most people he had ever seen out there, with the cops taping everything off and the whole block frozen in shock. He had gotten back from his run and immediately worried about the little boy he knew, asking whether Deuce was at school, because that was where the kids should have been on a Friday morning, not inside a house surrounded by first responders. That instinct, the hope that maybe the child was somewhere safe, is exactly the kind of small human detail that makes a story like this land, because everyone watching wanted the same thing he wanted, and everyone learned the same crushing answer he did. When it came time to lay them to rest, the community showed up the way it had shown up online, with a wake and a funeral held in the days that followed, and a burial at a Dallas cemetery. And the tributes that poured in carried hashtags that tied the mother and son together forever, the two of them remembered as a pair the way they had lived.
We begin tonight in Dallas County, where detectives are investigating the death of a mother and her little boy.
Seagoville police were called to a welfare check last week when relatives couldn't get in contact with them, and officers found the mother and son both unresponsive inside their home.
Janelle Ford just spoke with some of their neighbors and joins us live in Seagoville with what she's learned.
Well, Chris and Izzy, overall, this is just a very sad situation. The neighbors tell me that the mother and son were found dead in the garage of this home. You can see where someone's come and placed flowers out front. And tonight, investigators are working to learn exactly what happened.
First, you hear the screams. Then moments later, you see the first responders. They're heading 2 doors down to this home, where 27-year-old Lyric Bacchus and her 7-year-old son Deuce were found dead in the garage.
It was just mayhem. Everybody out here crying, screaming. The cops was out here, they taped it off.
Bacchus's family believes the pair died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Police are waiting on autopsies before confirming.
This was the most people I ever seen out here at once.
Dion Loggins' home surveillance cameras captured the chaos Friday morning. He'd just gotten back from his morning run.
Yeah, I was concerned about the little boy, like, is he at school? Like, 'cause I know him and my daughter go to school right here.
Deuce was a first grader at Seagoville North Elementary. Monday, the school sent this letter home to parents, saying in part, "We extend our love and sympathy to their family at this time, and that they will have counselors on campus to help students and staff cope."
Where the little boy at, I was like, oh, once I heard he was gone, that's what it hit me the most. I was like, oh, wow, like, he was just out here playing with my son, about a week ago.
Now Loggins is trying to figure out how to give his little boy the news.
It's just hard for me to have a 3-year-old son and have to tell him how he lost his first friend.
Friday was Lyric's birthday. She was a social media influencer. She had a clothing boutique and tens of thousands of followers. And across social media, tributes are pouring in mourning her death.
Crazy.
In Seagoville, I'm Janelle Fort.
As for what actually happened inside that garage, the people closest to it landed on a painful but ordinary answer. Family members stated they believed the pair died from carbon monoxide poisoning, and police said they were waiting on autopsies before confirming. Carbon monoxide is the reason so many families never see it coming, because it is a gas you cannot see, smell, or taste, and it builds up in enclosed spaces like garages before anyone realizes something is wrong. The reason carbon monoxide takes so many families by surprise is that it gives you nothing to react to. It is often called the invisible killer because it is colorless, odorless, and tasteless, and it builds up quietly from things as common as a running vehicle in an attached garage, a faulty heater, or a blocked vent. By the time a person feels the headache or the dizziness, they are often already too far gone to save themselves, and in a closed garage overnight, the levels can climb high enough to take a life without anyone ever waking up. Online, some viewers speculated that the pair may have come home and fallen asleep in a vehicle with the engine still running, though that specific detail was never confirmed by the authorities. What the family believed and what the reporting pointed to was an ordinary household danger that turned deadly, the kind of thing that could happen to almost anyone. That was the belief of the people who loved them, and that was the direction the investigation was moving. Then the video hit the internet, the comments started rolling in, and a completely different story took over. Here is where a private family tragedy turned into a public murder mystery that the family never asked for. Underneath the news videos about Lyric and Deuce, the comment sections filled up fast, and a lot of those comments were not condolences at all. They were accusations. People started typing that this was no accident, that a mother and her son do not just die like that, and that somebody powerful had a reason to want her quiet. Out of all that noise, one theory rose to the top and stuck, and it is the idea that she had been threatening to expose a man and got silenced for it. The man those comments kept naming was Dallas rapper Yella Beezy. Unverified comments under the news videos claimed he was the father of Deuce and the baby mama connection, with people writing things as blunt as Yella Beezy knows and allegedly Yella Beezy is the boy's father. And this is the part where honesty has to win, because it matters. No police statement, no court document, no family member, and no credible news outlet ever confirmed that Yella Beezy had any relationship with Lyric Bacchus at all, let alone that he fathered her son. The connection existed only in anonymous online comments with no supporting evidence. Beyond that, there was never any threat to expose anyone in the reporting, never a domestic dispute that turned deadly, never an arrest, never a homicide investigation, and never a single official who treated these deaths as a killing. Local coverage consistently framed the incident as a suspected accidental carbon monoxide exposure, and the funeral records confirmed the dates and the services without ever pointing to foul play. Services were held at Eternal Rest Funeral Home in DeSoto, with burial at Lincoln Memorial Cemetery in Dallas, and that was the reality the family had to live with. There is one more detail that quietly demolishes the whole rumor, and it is what Yella Beezy himself did in response, which is nothing. If a famous man had secretly fathered a child who just died and the entire internet was accusing him of it by name, you would expect some kind of reaction, a statement, a denial, a tribute, an angry post, anything. Instead, extensive searches of news, interviews, and his own verified social media turned up no statement, no tribute, and no acknowledgement of Lyric Bacchus or Deuce at all. This is not a man who stays silent when something touches him personally either, because when his own mother passed away in early 2026, he poured his grief out publicly and openly. The silence around Lyric was not the silence of a guilty man hiding, it was the silence of a man with no connection to a story that strangers built without him. It's worth being precise about what does not exist here, because the absence is the whole point. There are no charging documents, no arrest warrants, no homicide case files, and no police statements alleging that anyone killed Lyric and Deuce. And the only reason those things don't exist is that the deaths were never treated as a crime. Any deeper paperwork, like a full medical examiner report, would have to be pulled through a formal public records request, and even then, nothing that has surfaced points anywhere near a murder. When you strip away the comments and look only at what officials actually documented, the murder simply isn't there. But the internet did get one thing right by pure accident, and it's the thread that ties this whole video together. The man the comments named, Yelabeezy, really was sitting in the middle of a death investigation, a real one, with real charges and real evidence and a real trial coming. It had nothing to do with Lyric Bacchus and nothing to do with any hidden child. It had to do with another Dallas rapper, a friend turned rival, gunned down on a highway in the middle of the day, and a case that accuses Yelabeezy of paying to make it happen. The rumor pinned the wrong death on him. The courtroom pinned a very different one. So let's leave Lyric and Deuce to rest, and let's walk into the story the state of Texas is actually trying to prove. To understand why anyone believed a rapper could be capable of ordering a killing, you have to understand where Yelabeezy came from and how he came up, because his whole rise is a story about clawing out of the bottom. His legal name is Marquise DeAndre Conway, and he built his name out of the Oak Cliff area of Dallas, a city that by his own telling gave his artists no help and no shortcuts.
And when it finally did do what it's doing now, how did you feel like the first time you hear it on the radio and everything?
It changed my life. It took me from the mud.
Because Dallas had another young star rising at the exact same time, and his name was Melvin Noble, who the world knew as MO3. MO3 wasn't some small local act though, because he had built a devoted following of his own with raw, emotional street records that hit different in Dallas. So this was never a big fish picking on a little one. It was two rising stars fighting over the same crown in the same city at the same moment. The two of them came out of the same scene, chased the same recognition, and represented the same streets. And in a rap culture where authenticity is currency, two hungry artists claiming the same territory is a recipe for friction. That friction started small, the way these things always do, with neighborhood pride, social media shots, and songs that took quiet jabs at each other. And for a while, both men waved it off in public as nothing serious. Underneath the surface, though, prosecutors would later describe a years-long, escalating rivalry that ran from around 2017 all the way to the day MO3 was killed. The moment everything hardened came in 2018, and it started with a comedian, not a rapper. A close friend and associate of MO3's named Roylee Pate had been publicly questioning Yelabeezy's ties to Oak Cliff, challenging whether he was really from where he claimed, and calling him out in videos that circulated all over the city.
Come on, ho, you from America, you from Oak Cliff, America. What up?
You understand me? You don't count. That's why it hurted me, because with Mo3 and other rappers saying they wasn't from where they from, but Mo3 went to these schools in North Dallas. You understand me?
Yeah, I had to do the Mo3 challenge too, man. It's from my city, man. My nigga Mo3 on the block.
Oak Cliff around here. Yellow Beezy, man. We in here, man. Y'all see what this is my city, man. Y'all already know what it is, man. Oak Cliff America said that meant that stand on that, man. For real.
So you waiting on a fight with who?
The Pink Man, Pink Panther, whatever y'all want to call him, man.
Then things turned violent in a way that nobody could laugh off. Pate was shot in a North Dallas parking lot in September of 2018, and he died on October 13th, complications tied to the injury.
We all got the call. We was at the club like, hey, man, Roy got to get rushed to the hospital, man.
What happened next is the detail that lit the fuse for everything that followed, because the very next day, Yella Beezy himself was shot multiple times in a drive-by while driving on the Sam Rayburn Tollway, and somehow he survived a car riddled with bullets. 2 shootings, one day apart, on 2 sides of the same beef, and the whole city started connecting the dots out loud. MO3 answered the only way a rapper knows, which was in the music, and the songs he put out were read by fans, by local media, and eventually by prosecutors as something more than entertainment. Tracks like Slide On 'Em carried lyrics about getting a call that his dog had died and declining it because he was too busy plotting revenge, and a song called 219 was widely seen as a direct escalation that referenced a rapper getting shot on the tollway. The timing of that song 219 is part of why people read so much into it, because it dropped around the period of Roylee Pate's birthday, which made it feel less like a random diss and more like a message tied directly to the man who had died. Through it all, Yella Beezy publicly denied any involvement in Pate's death and denied that there was even a real beef, and in interviews at the time, he went as far as claiming he didn't really know who MO3 was, telling one platform he knew everybody from his city making noise and had never even heard the alleged diss track. For his part, MO3 sat down for his own interviews and waved the beef off as nothing, saying he had nothing to do with Yella's shooting and stressing that it was real out in those streets and you had to stay out of the way. Those public denials from both men sat uneasily next to the reality, because no matter what either of them said into a microphone, the shots kept flying, both in the studio and in the streets, and the people of Dallas never believed for a second that the two of them had actually squashed anything. Years later, this exact tension would become the center of a courtroom fight, because Yella Beezy's defense would argue that MO3 largely manufactured the beef himself for attention and sales, since controversy sells, and a friendly, uncontroversial artist is rarely the one people pay to listen to. Whether the rivalry was real hatred or half performance is something a jury will have to sort out. But what nobody disputes is that it kept escalating and kept drawing blood. And that is the uncomfortable heart of this whole case, because in a world where rappers are expected to talk tough and sell danger, the line between a persona built for the mic and a threat meant for real life can be almost impossible to see from the outside, which is exactly the confusion the state and the defense are now fighting over in front of a judge.
Sip a cup on some motherfucking ball. Gut a bitch out like a motherfucking golf. Hey, shot from Dallas, I'm a motherfucking star. My girl the baddest around, she so motherfucking raw. Don't get no dirt up in my car. Hey, getting to the money, baby, that's my repertoire. Yeah, leave Yella alone, cause I take it too far.
By early 2020, the tension had spilled into the real world again. This time at a Dallas club where MO3's manager, Brandon Rainwater, alleged that Yella Beezy and his crew chased him down and beat him badly enough to dislocate his hip, which led to a civil lawsuit and, later, a jury verdict against Yella. By Rainwater's account, he was told to wait outside the club. A security guard approached him with a gun while Yella stood nearby, and when he ran in fear, Yella and his crew caught him across the street and beat him, with parts of the chase caught on surveillance video. He said they even circled back to the parking lot afterward to brag about it, and he sued for more than $1 million, dragging the beef out of the studio and into a courtroom for the first time. It was one more brick in a wall that prosecutors would later point to when they described a rivalry that never stayed on wax. Piece by piece, the record was filling up with incidents, and the whole Dallas scene could feel that this rivalry was not cooling off. The violence did not even stop when Mo3 died, because just days after his killing, Louisiana rapper Boozy Badass, a close collaborator of Mo3 who was in Dallas to pay his respects, was shot in the leg, an injury that authorities and later prosecutors linked to the same volatile climate of tension.
How bad was the shot? Because I believe I seen that you had a few complications with it going forward.
Yeah, I mean, still got iron in my leg, bro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
It blew my kneecap out.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, big bullet then, I take it. Probably.
Yeah, 45.
Every layer of this story kept feeding the next one, so that by the time the state built its case, it could point to years of shootings, lawsuits, and diss records as the backdrop to a single killing. What none of them knew back then was that the countdown had almost run out, and that within months, one of these two men would be dead on a freeway in broad daylight, setting off the case that would eventually put the other one in handcuffs. The killing happened on November 11th, 2020, right around midday when Mo3 was driving on Interstate 35E in Dallas. A dark vehicle pulled up, a masked gunman got out with a rifle, and Mo3 did the only thing he could, which was to run. He got out of his car and took off on foot, down the middle of the highway with cars all around, and the gunman chased him down and fired again and again, striking him multiple times, including in the back. An innocent bystander in another vehicle was also hit, though those injuries were not life-threatening, and Mo3 was rushed to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Investigators later recovered a staggering amount of shell casings from the scene, with reports citing around 44, which tells you everything about how brazen and how personal this attack was. Police moved on the physical evidence first, releasing surveillance images of a thin, masked man carrying a rifle. And that public appeal cracked the case open. A witness came forward, and the pieces started coming together fast. Kewan Dontrell White was identified as the alleged shooter, with cell phone location data placing him near Mo3 before and during the shooting, and he was arrested that December in Oak Cliff by a task force that included federal officers. White later pleaded guilty to a separate federal firearms charge and was sentenced to about 105 months, nearly 9 years in federal prison, all while still facing the state charges tied to the killing.
10 o'clock Dallas, police have made an arrest in the deadly of Dallas rapper Mo3. Tonight, police are telling us that they have taken 21-year-old Kewan Dontrell White into custody for the death of Mo3. White faces a charge and also a charge of prohibited possession of a firearm. The rapper was shot and killed on I-35E out of his automobile near the Dallas Zoo.
Investigators leaned on more than one thread to build that early picture, because beyond the witness tip, they had surveillance stills of the masked gunman with a rifle and later presented highway footage, including video captured from a Kroger 18-wheeler that showed the vehicle stopping and the deadly chase playing out. A second man, Devin Maurice Brown, was pulled into the case as an alleged affiliate whose phone records showed numerous calls with White in the day before and the day of the shooting, with early affidavits describing anger over a relationship and repeated questions about Mo3's location before the attack. For years, that was where the case sat, with a suspected triggerman and an alleged coordinator, but no answer to the biggest question of all, which was who wanted Mo3 dead badly enough to send someone to do it. That question got its answer in 2025, and the answer landed like a bomb on the Dallas rap scene. A Dallas County grand jury indicted Marquise Conway, Yella Beezy, on a charge of capital murder while remuneration, the Texas charge for murder for hire, accusing him of hiring White to kill Mo3 for payment. Hear how a local broadcast laid out exactly what the state is claiming.
A judge could soon rule, very soon in fact, on a key piece of evidence involving the alleged murder for hire case against a Dallas rapper whose legal name is Marquise Conway.
So it follows days of hearings focused on whether rap lyrics could play a role in the trial. Fox 4's Stephen Dial in our newsroom with this. Stephen.
Heather, the prosecution is hoping that rap lyrics can be used because they say it paints a narrative before and after the murder of rapper Mo3. The defense for rapper Yella Beezy believes that it's protected speech under the First Amendment. Marquise Conway, who goes by the rap name Yella Beezy, was back in a Dallas County courtroom this morning. He's accused of organizing a murder for hire plot against Melvin Noble, who went by the rap name Mo3. Noble was killed on a Dallas highway in 2020. For several days, the prosecution has argued that rap lyrics from Yella Beezy and another musician talking about a bounty being put on the head of Mo 3. The prosecution also says that lyrics followed his death, celebrating the.
But the songs that the state has selected do not contain all that. In fact, they are braggadocious about criminal activity, but the criminal activity mentioned is directly on point to the charged offense. They talk directly about placing bounties for reprisal. They talk about the murder, and they talk about the feud.
Singing about drugs, guns, and murder is nothing new. It's as prevalent in our culture as singing about and love. But what these lyrics and music videos have in common is that they are artistic expressions. Using someone's art in the guilt-innocence phase of a trial only as character evidence has the potential of being unfairly prejudicial. That's exactly what the state's trying to do in this case, Your Honor.
Prosecutors say Yella Beezy hired a hitman to kill Mo 3. Kewan Dontrell White has already been convicted on firearm charges. Yella Beezy was arrested last year after a grand jury indicted him on a charge of capital murder related to the conspiracy. It's 5 o'clock. We are still waiting to see how the judge will rule and if that judge will rule today. But there's another hearing date later this week on another motion. The target date for jury selection in this trial is August 24th. Steve.
All right, Stephen Dial in the newsroom. Stephen, thank you very much.
He was arrested. His bond was first set to $2 million and later reduced to $750,000, and he was released under house arrest with an ankle monitor, later getting permission to leave home just 1 day a week to record music in a studio. Through it all, he has pleaded not guilty, and it's important to say clearly that these are allegations he has denied and that a jury still has to weigh them. The heart of the state's case is money and words. Prosecutors say a witness will testify that Conway took part in conversations about paying for the hit, and they tie that to bank records showing a $40,000 cash withdrawal in the days after the murder, an amount they say matches the payment. To drive the point home, prosecutors also laid out how much money moved through his accounts, referencing bank records showing roughly $870,000 across checking and savings around that period, along with a home in Frisco and a bulletproof vehicle, all painted as proof that he had the resources to pay for a killing and the reach to worry about witnesses. His defense fired back that the state has no texts, no messages, and no recordings of any deal, only a witness who claims to have overheard a conversation. And at his bond hearing, his own grandmother took the stand to say he could not afford the original $2 million bond. Prosecutors went even further in trying to shape how a jury would see him, filing notice that they wanted to introduce his alleged history as well, including claimed longtime gang ties and association with a crew called Get Rich Cartel, plus a string of older weapon and assault cases, many of which never ended in conviction. His lawyers pushed hard to keep most of that out, arguing that dragging in unproven old accusations would poison the jury against a man who hasn't been found guilty of anything in this case. Then came the specific music itself, because the state zeroed in on a handful of tracks, including one described as an anti-snitch anthem, arguing the songs and posts documented the feud and the alleged bounty, with prosecutors claiming that a couple of the songs were even referenced in text messages on the day of the murder. The other half of the fight is over his lyrics, because prosecutors want to play his songs as proof of motive, while his lawyers argue the music is protected artistic expression, not a confession. That battle spilled across days of pretrial hearings in the summer of 2026. Listen to how the state framed the entire reason this evidence exists.
It is the state's case on motive and the events that led to the charged offense. This case concerns a rap feud, Your Honor, between known Dallas rappers. Their feud was open, it was public, it was in social media, it was in their media interviews, it was through their music, and it was in the streets of Dallas. This offense did not happen in a vacuum, and the jury is entitled to hear about what transpired that led to one Dallas rapper placing a bounty on another Dallas rapper.
The defense brought in a rap scholar to warn the court about exactly how dangerous it is to treat a rhyme like a signed statement. Watch him explain the trap.
If rappers are saying, and I say rappers in their characters, using their stage names, but if they're saying, I did this, I did that, I did that, if you strip that of all of its artistic intent, if you negate it as rap, as an art form, it just it can sound like straight confession. That's a perfect way to send people to jail for something they didn't do.
And yet, a detective for the state cut through all the legal language with one blunt reminder about what this case is really made of. Hear it in his words.
This case is about Dallas rappers airing out their beef with their music. Rap music is part of this case, Your Honor. It is not a side feature to distract or mislead or confuse the jury. And we aren't doing it just to impugn his character. Rather, the lyrics and the music themselves expose the motive between the parties, the relationship between the parties, and in certain cases explain the events that led to it. As you heard from Detective Barnes, these were not just words, people were dying. He further told us that everyone in this case has been shot.
A judge allowed only a limited set of that music and evidence to come in, and after multiple delays, including a continuance tied to a massive 16-terabyte pile of discovery and the death of Conway's mother in early 2026, which caused him to miss a hearing, the case was set for trial in late August of 2026. The other men have their own roads through the system, since the alleged shooter, Kewan White, is already serving that federal prison term while still facing the state charge, and the court signaled it would sort out the order in which everyone goes to trial. Prosecutors leaned on the plain reality that traditional street witnesses weren't lining up to cooperate, which is exactly why they reached so hard for the music and the social media in the first place. If he is convicted of capital murder for hire, he faces either life without parole or the death penalty under Texas law, which means the man who once rapped about coming from the mud to the top is now sitting in the most serious kind of case a person can face. That's the real weight the internet's rumor accidentally brushed up against. Now we cross state lines to Houston, where another rapper's relationship with the mother of his children turned into a case just as disturbing, though it ended in a way almost nobody saw coming.
Money got this in on her head like she Booker T. Yo, screaming, look at me. She charge you a cookie fee. Bitch begging to cook for me. Good hair with crooked teeth. Put your own work in around here, you cannot ride for me. Spending money over and over and over like I got a time machine. You can go anywhere you want, just don't be lying to me.
Warren Brown II built his name the hard way too, and if you only knew him by his rap sheet, you'd miss the childhood that shaped it. He raps under the name Cartel Beau, and before that, NFL Cartel Beau, and he came up on the northeast side of Houston in the Lakewood area, a neighborhood tied to serious gang history. By his own account in long-form interviews, his home life was chaos because his mother had him when she was still a teenager and couldn't raise him with any stability, so the job fell to his grandmother. Listen to how he tells the story of who actually raised him.
Right now, I mean, what was it like growing up? Did you grow up in a single-parent household? Like, what was it like growing up, man, in the north side?
Man, really, Lakewood raised me, bro. My granny raised me. You know, my mama had me in high school, you feel me? So when she had me, you know, she had me, after she had me, she got pregnant with my sister. So then she kind of like moved. My grandma raised me in Lakewood my whole life.
From there, he is described bouncing between houses, projects, relatives, and church families with almost no stability, and the details he shares are hard to sit with. He is alleged that one of his mother's partners tied him up with extension cords and beat him until he bled. Abuse, he says, went on for years until his grandmother finally stepped in. And he has made even darker claims about his mother, including that she once shot at him and that the family cycled in and out of the child welfare system. By his early teens, he described himself as basically homeless, living house to house. At 16, he was shot in the leg and had to walk with a cane for a while, blacking out in the hospital when he tried to stand. And against all of that, he still dragged himself back to school and became the first person in his immediate family to graduate high school. That is the raw material Cartel Beau turned into music, a hard, freestyle-heavy Houston sound that made him a name in the streets long before it made him a name anywhere else. His roots ran straight through Houston gang territory, with law enforcement describing him as a documented member of a local Crips set. And that background is a big part of why his art and his legal trouble kept bleeding into each other. After his release, he even dropped the NFL part of his old name, reportedly out of concern that the gang-branded label could expose him to federal racketeering charges, which tells you how carefully he understood the line he was walking. He signed on with fellow Houston star Maxo Cream's imprint in partnership with a major label, and his comeback single grew out of a freestyle he had first performed at a prison talent show, so that by the time he came home, the redemption story practically wrote itself, a man fresh out of federal time turning his pain into product. He put out a run of projects and stocked features with names like Sauce Waka, Paul Wall, Slim Thug, and Trey the Truth, leaning into a work ethic he tied directly to his kids, telling anyone who would listen that he was grinding so he would never let his daughters down again. On paper, it was a man doing everything right, coming out of prison and building something legitimate off the strength of his story. That is exactly what makes the next chapter so jarring, because the same fatherhood he kept putting at the center of his comeback is what sits at the center of the case that would land him right back in a cell. The mother of those children, the woman he shared his life and his chaos with, would soon become the name on a set of charges serious enough to carry a life sentence, and the story of how they got there is where his redemption arc runs straight off the road. His first real brush with fame, though, came wrapped in a federal case, and it is the case that tells you how blurry the line was between his art and his life has always been. Back in 2018, he and fellow Houston rapper Maxo Cream shot a music video in Lakewood Park, right next to an elementary school at roughly the same time class was letting out. The cast was full of documented gang members, and the props were real, loaded guns. Somebody driving by saw men with firearms and called the police, and when officers showed up, most of the cast scattered and left the weapons behind. Watch how the local news broke down what that video actually got him.
Tonight on 2, Rap Video Repercussions. This video now has millions of views, and some of the people looking at it are Houston police officers. Those investigators say some of what they spotted are federal violations.
That has led to arrests. Others are still wanted. Part of the video was shot in a community gathering place, Lakewood Park, right next to Hilliard Elementary. Phil Archer is live at the nearby police substation on Lay Road. He has a story only on 2 tonight. Phil?
Yeah, and that park's only about a mile from this substation. Back in March, 2 rappers shooting a video in the park had a run-in with some of the officers. It led to a months-long investigation. The problem, their cast was made up of gang members using real loaded as props. Styling themselves as Maxo Cream and NFL Cartel Beau, the featured rappers chose Lakewood Park next to Hilliard Elementary School to shoot their video. They did it at about the same time school was letting out. Some of the kids actually got into the video. What also got in were about a dozen loaded, some of them stolen, that were being used for props, and the extras holding the, according to police, all documented street gang members. Some people driving by saw men with here on the basketball court and called police. When police showed up, some suspects with open warrants were arrested on the spot, but much of the cast ran, leaving behind the weapons and small amounts of drugs. 2 months later, the video was released online, and it was a hit. It's gotten about 2 million views so far on YouTube. But it's also the tool police use to track down and identify everyone in the video who was holding a weapon. 20 have been charged with illegal possession of weapons, including rapper NFL Cartel Beau, also known as Warren Brown, a convicted felon. Brown was charged with illegally possessing 2 assault rifles and with threatening a police officer on the way to jail. He was released on bond in order to wear an ankle monitor, but police say he cut it off and disappeared. He's still on the run, along with 8 other suspects identified from the video, 4 of them on probation or parole, and 1, aspiring rapper Kenyon Tennessee, shown holding a child, is dead. Before he could be charged, Tennessee was last month, along with another man outside a West Side nightclub. Of the 20 facing state charges, 11 have also been charged in federal court, and police say some of them were already wanted for questioning in connection with other unrelated crimes. Reporting live in Northeast Houston, I'm Phil Archer, KPRC, Channel 2.
That video, once it went viral, became the exact tool that police used to identify and charge everyone holding a gun in it. Brown pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 78 months, about 6.5 years, in federal prison, and he was released in early 2024 and got straight back to recording, dropping tracks like Fresh Out the Feds and leaning into a comeback built on redemption and street credibility. He also carried a longer history of Harris County convictions before all of it, including assault and terroristic threat. So by the time he came home, he was a man with a real second chance and a very long shadow behind him. At the center of his personal life was the mother of his children, a Houston dancer and content creator known publicly as Alexia Valdez, or by the name Trill's Zelda Blanco. The two of them shared 3 children, and their relationship was openly described as on-again, off-again, and turbulent. Valdez was a known figure in the Houston scene in her own right, a dancer and content creator who spoke openly on podcasts about coming up in the streets, about strip club life, and about the loyalty and toxicity of being tied to a street-oriented rapper. She built a following promoting adult content, and she did not shy away from the spotlight, going as far as taking a live pregnancy test on camera during one appearance. Their relationship played out loudly in public, including a moment in the summer of 2025 when Brown posted a viral list of men he claimed she had been involved with, and she fired back with her own accusations, alleging he had physically abused her in the past, including while she was pregnant, and had tried to have her committed. This was not a quiet couple, and their conflicts were the kind that lived on everyone's timeline. Then, in the summer of 2026, the conflict stopped being online drama and turned into a criminal case, and it began with an ordinary errand. In late June, Valdez arranged an Uber after meeting Brown to pick up their young son, and the driver reported seeing her running while carrying the child's car seat before Brown allegedly attacked her, punched the driver who tried to help, and threatened to kill him for the simple act of trying to help. That incident produced warrants for assault, and those warrants were still hanging over him when the far more serious allegations arrived. What prosecutors say happened next reads like a nightmare, though every piece of it is still an allegation that a court has to test. According to charging documents, on or around July 21, 2026, Brown abducted Valdez and confined her inside a locked, deadbolted closet at a home in Cyprus, allegedly checking on her hourly, refusing to let her leave and assaulting her over a period of days. The way that confinement supposedly ended was almost accidental because Brown left the house and got pulled over by deputies on those older warrants, and with him gone, Valdez made her move. Watch how the news described the escape.
At this home on Darby Retreat Lane, a woman says the father of her children locked her in a closet for at least 4 days, only able to escape after he left and got pulled over.
This is just not something that we're used to, and it is a bit on the frightening side.
Neighbors saw cops at the house throughout the weekend.
They were here literally all day, till the evening.
As they discovered, according to court records, zip ties, a closet with a deadbolt, and fast food wrappers inside. But before Harris County Precinct 4 deputy constables came to the house Saturday evening, they pulled over Warren Brown, seen here in the back of a cop car, and better known online as rapper Cartel Beau. He'd been wanted for more than a week for allegedly assaulting the same woman in late June outside a recording studio in northwest Harris County. When she realized he'd been gone from the home for so long, records show she was able to escape, flagging down a neighbor for help.
She got out of that house, still handcuffed and wearing only her underwear, flagged down a neighbor for help, and was later found near a Waffle House before being taken to a hospital. According to some accounts, she had marks on her neck consistent with being choked and appeared to have gone without proper food and water, details investigators would later fold into the case. The alarm had actually gone up in the middle of the night because around 1 o'clock in the morning, Brown's aunt, Sonia Gadri, who had custody of the children, placed a 911 call that started as a welfare concern and grew into something far more serious, a sequence the defense would later poke at by questioning the timing of the calls. The neighbors who watched police work that scene for an entire weekend could feel that something deeply was wrong. When investigators searched the home, the things they say they found are what turned this from a domestic call into an aggravated kidnapping charge. According to court records, deputies recovered zip ties, handcuffs, a closet with a deadbolt, fast food wrappers on the floor, a urine-soaked mattress, and rotten food, all of which investigators described as consistent with someone being held against their will. Because Brown was already in custody on the June warrants, the new charge was simply stacked on top, and prosecutors moved to hold him without bond, arguing he was a danger to the woman and to the community. In Texas, aggravated kidnapping can carry a sentence as serious as life in prison, so the stakes for him could not be higher. Then the case took the turn that almost nobody predicts in a story this dark, and it happened at his bond hearing in early August. Prosecutors put a disturbing image in front of the judge. Watch how that moment was reported.
This disturbing photo showed in court Monday captured bruises covering the legs of the woman allegedly held captive by rapper Cartel Beau, also known as Warren Brown. Both sides offered very different explanations for the bruises. Prosecutors say they came from beatings, but the defense says they were caused by rough sex and her work as a dancer.
The allegations are very salacious, but allegations are just that.
Both sides told the court a completely different story about those bruises, with prosecutors saying they came from beatings and the defense saying they came from rough sex and her work as a dancer. The defense went further than that, arguing that the handcuffs found in the home weren't restraints at all, but props from consensual adult content the couple made together. And then they dropped the biggest card of all. Valdez had signed an affidavit of non-prosecution and recorded a video taking it all back, claiming she was never threatened or assaulted, that she was under the influence when she first spoke to police, and that law enforcement had pressured her into her statements. In an instant, the alleged victim had become the defense's strongest witness. Prosecutors weren't buying it, and they told the court exactly why. They alleged that in the days before the hearing, Brown had used another inmate's credentials to call Valdez from jail and push her to sign the affidavit and record the video. And they pointed out that she was financially dependent on him and that the two had a pattern of domestic violence. A trauma therapist who spoke about the case explained why a sudden reversal like this doesn't surprise the people who work in this world. Hear how she framed it.
It's actually a lot more common than you think, and it's actually quite alarming.
Prosecutors also reminded the judge that in Texas, a victim taking back her statement does not automatically end a case when other evidence exists, and they warned the court about what letting Brown walk could mean. Listen to the line they left the judge with.
They say that if Brown is released, the only question then becomes what happens to this victim next.
There was one more piece of legal reality working against the idea that her recantation would simply end everything. Because in Texas, a victim signing an affidavit of non-prosecution does not automatically shut a case down when other evidence exists. The state can still move forward on the physical evidence, the search findings, and the circumstances of the escape, all on its own. And prosecutors made clear they intended to do exactly that. On top of the kidnapping charge, Brown was also dealing with a separate misdemeanor case tied to the Uber driver from June. So the pressure on him was coming from more than one direction, and the whole saga had drawn enough attention that community figures were showing up to weigh in publicly on both the evidence and the way it was being handled. The judge denied bond, and Brown remained in the Harris County Jail while the case moved forward. Like every other allegation in this video, this one still has to be proven, and Brown is presumed innocent until it is. But the recantation left the whole city with the same uneasy question the prosecutors raised, which is whether a woman was set free by the truth or silenced by pressure, and that is a question no comment section can answer for her. What the court could see was the physical evidence, the escape, and the timeline, and what it could not see was inside a relationship that both people had described at different moments as loving, toxic, and dangerous all at once. So look at what these three stories have in common when you lay them side by side. In Dallas, a young mother and her little boy died in a way the record calls a tragic accident, and the internet buried them under a murder story they never earned, pinning it on a rapper who had nothing to do with their deaths. That same rapper, Yella Beezy, really is accused of a killing, just a different one, the murder for hire of a rival named MO3, and he is fighting for his life over it in a Dallas courtroom. And down in Houston, Cartel Beau sits in a jail cell accused of holding the mother of his children captive in a case that flipped on its head when she took it all back. 3 rappers, 3 women, 3 children caught somewhere in the middle, and one hard lesson running through all of it, which is that the story people scream the loudest online is almost never the story the evidence tells, and the truth deserves more patience than a comment section will ever give it. Rest in peace to Lyric Bacchus and her son Deuce, and rest in peace to Melvin Noble, MO3. If you know someone who is loved by the world online but struggling behind the scenes, or someone stuck in a relationship that has turned dangerous, do not wait for a comment section to sound the alarm. Be the person who checks on them first. Drop your thoughts below and keep it respectful, because real families are behind every one of these names.